So, you've built this amazing e-commerce brand, right? Sales are humming, your customers love you, and now you're looking at a map thinking, bigger. Global expansion feels like the next big thing, and it is. But man, it's a path that's just littered with really expensive mistakes. So today, let's talk about the smart way to take your brand from a local hero to a global powerhouse. All right, so you've absolutely crushed it in your home market. The world is calling your name, and that's an incredibly exciting moment for any entrepreneur. But hold on. Before you even think about translating your website, there's a really hard truth we gotta face. Because if you ignore this, it's the difference between real sustainable growth and just becoming another statistic in this, global graveyard of failed brands. And here it is. This is the brutal reality. Over half, 56%, of all international launches just fail. And you know what? The reason is almost always the same. Businesses rush in without really understanding the local market. They're essentially just pouring money into a launch that was pretty much doomed from the very start. This is what we call the global expansion trap. It's this dangerous belief that speed is everything, that you've got to capture a new market before anyone else does. But in reality, moving fast without a solid strategy isn't just risky. It's honestly one of the most expensive bets you can possibly make. So here's the absolute biggest takeaway. The number one mistake? Assuming what works for you at home is going to work everywhere else. It's just not true. Every market has its own unique culture, its own buying habits, its own competitive landscape. Just assuming your best-selling product, your killer marketing slogan, or even your brand colors are going to resonate everywhere, that is the single biggest mistake you can make, period. Okay, so how do you avoid this trap? It's all about shifting your mindset. The foundation of a successful global launch, it's not a massive ad budget. It's not some huge round of investment. It's actually way simpler and frankly, much more powerful. It's deep, thoughtful understanding. It's about moving smart, not just moving fast. This really boils down to two totally different paths. You've got the moving fast path. That's all about throwing money at the problem, right? A huge ad spend, a big investment round, and just kind of crossing your fingers and hoping it sticks. But then there's the moving smart path, and this is fundamentally different. It's about investing your brain before you invest your cash. You do the research, you localize your approach, and you test your assumptions before you go all in. And listen, the data on this is crystal clear. Nearly 3/4, 73% of global shoppers want an experience that feels local, that feels culturally relevant. They want to feel like you get them. When you skip the research, you're basically shutting the door on the vast majority of your potential customers right from the get-go. Okay, so this brings us to the practical stuff. It's one thing to say, hey, do your research, but what does it actually mean? Well, before you spend a single dollar, a single euro, or a single pound on expansion, you need to get intensely curious about your new audience. And I mean really granular with your questions. Is this market totally dominated by a giant like Amazon, or is there some local marketplace that's the real king? Do your product colors have some weird, unintended meaning over there? Will your brand name even make sense or sound ridiculous? Answering these questions, that's what shapes your entire launch strategy.
All right, so once you get the lay of the land, your next job is to build trust. You got to remember, in a new market, nobody knows who you are. You're not just selling a product, you're selling the idea that buying from you is a safe and smart decision. You are selling confidence.
And this whole trust thing, it's not a small deal. A staggering 81% of shoppers say they need to trust a brand before they'll even think about making a purchase. In this big, anonymous world of online shopping, trust is your most valuable currency. Without it, the best product in the world is just going to sit on that virtual shelf. And this is where your brand story becomes so critical. Because as the saying goes, consumers don't just want products, they want to support brands that align with their values. People are buying into what you represent. What do you stand for? Why do you even exist? Seriously, when you're the new kid on the block, your story, what you care about, the problem you're solving, that's your most valuable asset. It's your primary weapon for cutting through all the noise. It's what makes you different from the established local competitors. It's how you turn a curious visitor into a loyal, raving fan. Okay, so you've done your homework, you've crafted this amazing brand story. Now it's launch time, right? Well, yes, but probably not in the way you're thinking. This is what we call the test before you scale phase, and it's designed to protect you from those huge, costly inventory mistakes. This whole smart launch process is all about de-risking your expansion. So instead of launching your entire catalog, you start small, just a few of your core products.
Then you use these highly targeted, localized ads, not just to sell, but to learn. You're testing your messaging, you're gathering real feedback, and only when the data confirms you've got real demand, that's when you scale up your investment.
You know, a really powerful tool for this testing phase? Partnering with local influencers. They offer an incredible shortcut to building trust. I mean, when nearly half of all consumers are relying on their recommendations, you just can't afford to ignore them. They can provide that initial spark of awareness and that all-important social proof. But here's a little secret. Bigger isn't always better. A niche creator with a smaller but super engaged audience can often drive a way bigger sales impact than some mega influencer. And why is that? Authenticity. Their audience trusts their recommendations completely, and that connection is just so much more powerful than a massive passive follower count. So, wow, we've covered a lot of ground, right? From the dangers of that expansion trap all the way to the power of methodical testing. Let's pull it all together into a clear, actionable blueprint you can use to guide your own global launch. Okay, this is your roadmap to success. First, know the market. Research is your absolute foundation. Second, build trust. Your brand story is what makes you different. Third, test demand first. Use localized ads and a small launch to prove your concept before you go big. Fourth, scale smart. You only invest once you've validated the market. And finally, when all that is in place, you go big. Sustainable growth is built on strategy, my friends, not on luck. Look, you already have what it takes to win. You've proven that in your home market. The only question now is, are you ready to apply these lessons and take on the world? Not by moving fast, but by moving smart.